Do you know literacy problems is the number one issue in IEPs in the United States? Well, you need to listen to today's episode about treatments for dyslexia. Hi, I'm Dr. Roseann, and I'm a mental health trailblazer. Join me as we have real conversations about real solutions to kids' problems. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects because I'm the mom of a dyslexic, dyslexia, and just how to change the brain. Let's dive in. This is It's Gonna Be Okay, and I'm Dr. Roseann. And if you're a special needs parent, I hope that you enjoyed today's episode because we're talking with one of my favorite people and another mother, just like me, of a dyslexic who's thriving. And I want every parent whose kid is struggling, whether it's dyslexia or ADHD, to listen to this episode because we're going to talk about just why our kids are thriving with one of my favorite people, Miss Nancy McDermott, our clinical director.
Also, you were one of my favorite people, and I have to say that along this journey with my son Anthony, we have been very blessed. There have been some angels that have been placed in our path, these very special people who are a gift to this earth, and you are most definitely one of them.
You're going to make me freaking cry, Nancy.
Oh, I don't want to start you crying, but I
didn't know that you were going to. I have very good hair and makeup today, and I'm going to cry. I didn't know you were going to say that, and I just want to say thank you for that. And I mean, you and your family are wonderful human beings, and all kids are awesome. But to see what you did and this process of helping your son and seeing him thrive today is beautiful. And I want to share that message because, yes, I talk about the brain. Yes, I talk about all the solutions, but I want to show what happens when people use it. And that's what your story is. Plus, you came in as a mom and I stole you and you work for me. So
yeah, you certainly didn't steal me. As soon as I saw how well things were going for Anthony doing this, I remember I came to you and I was like, I need to do this with you. I need to become a neurofeedback provider myself. I need to help you do this because what you're doing with this mission and how you are really helping families was so incredible to me. It was profound. I needed to be part of it. So very happy.
Well, Anthony, and how lucky am I? So, but it is, and Nancy is as nerdy as me, and we like to have a good time. So that's a winning combination as far as I'm concerned, right? And Nancy's fabulous at karaoke and playing any kind of game. You want her on your team. I'm just saying. As soon as you tell her there's a competition, she says it's on in the text thread. But let's talk about, I know, right? So we got to have fun because when, we have neurodivergence and life sometimes is a challenge. And I love hearing Anthony's story because let's talk about his classic, struggle with reading as a very bright, lovely, well-adjusted, happy kid who wasn't reading. Like, what happened with Anthony?
Yeah, so we do have somewhat of a classic story. So I'm sure moms with kids with dyslexia or who are having similar problems to what we're about to describe are all going to be like, yes, yes, and yes. So, early on in his development, he was, walking quickly and, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, all going great. Even verbal skills going great. All of a sudden we get to trying to learn letters and we are at a dead stop. And it was shocking because he was learning everything else so quickly and easily, but letters?
No, that was our stop too.
It was so strange to me because this was a kid, and I bet your Giancarlo, who I know also has dyslexia, is quite similar in that he could build things that would blow your mind. Starting at age like 2 or 3 with his Legos, he would have levers going and trap doors and things that I was like, how could you figure that out?
So creative,
but not know the letter B. It was blowing my mind. And I right out the gate knew something was not right here. And I am fortunate in 2 ways in that I was in the mental health field. I'm in the mental health field already. So I have a little bit of an idea of some learning disabilities. And also my twin brother, was dyslexic. And so there were things were starting to really remind me of Brian. So I right away I was thinking, oh, something's not right here. But Tony, my husband, which is kind of funny, he was sort of like, give it time, give it time, give it time. So I didn't really push it. So we put him in a private school in kindergarten because, we lived in the Bronx and some of the schools were a little sketchy there. And so we figured, well, we'll, get him set up. Nothing too fancy. It was just a solid school. But they did start literacy and reading skills right out the gate in kindergarten. And it was a nightmare. He sight words, no. Anytime they tried to copy something off the board, what was that on his paper? Who knew? Alien language, possibly. It was a mess. So handwriting was a problem, all of that kind of stuff. And I asked his kindergarten teacher at that point, I said, listen, this doesn't look right. What should I be doing about it? And she also kind of told me to hold off, which, again, surprises me because as somebody who's in the field and knows the earlier you get at things, the better you do. I was thinking, what are we waiting for exactly? I mean, this clearly looks wrong. But he was happy and he got along great with the other kids. So she's like, just give him a little more time. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking that's not a good idea. First grade rolls around and now they are up to the point where they are doing that accelerated reader program where you start to score points for the books you read. You do like a little exam on the computer. And this was it because that poor kid could not even, the reading was tough already. Trying to do this on the computer. Oh my God.
And trying to do it fast for points. Come on.
For points. Exactly. It was a disaster. And so he was not getting any points at all or getting very low points. And all of his other friends were getting all of these points. And he came home one day, and I'm hoping I'm not going to cry when I say this, but he came home one day and he said to me that he looked really glum. And I was like, what's going on, honey? And he said, I just wish I was smart like the rest of my family.
Oh.
Yeah, it broke my heart. And I was like, you are smart like the rest of your family. And he said, well, I can't read like everybody can.
Yeah.
Oh, and it was.
Well, reading is
it was so heartbreaking.
How you unlock everything.
All of the world unlocks in books. That is exactly right. And this was a smart, curious kid who wanted to know what was in the books.
Yeah.
Was really struggling to learn it. And his first grade teacher was amazing though. And she actually said to me, listen, not sure why this is the case, but there is this thing where they want to wait until more like third grade to make a diagnosis of something like dyslexia, which is so strange. They want to push it off. But she said to me, you should go get private testing because that's what this looks like.
And
and that's what I did.
And let's unpack that for a minute because I know the answer. Having worked in schools and having done neuropsych testing for 22 years. The answer is people don't understand dyslexia today. It's so easy to diagnose people. It's ridiculous. Like you just need to go to an expert who knows what it is. And so
100%, like there's so many clear signs. Like he couldn't rhyme things properly. Like he would get close. So like if you would ask him to rhyme something with say rain, he might say something like frame. Yeah, it's close. But no, that's not exact. So he would do things like that where you could tell there was something off with that kind of sound letter or sound word combination. Something was wrong. And that is dyslexia.
Yeah. And, the other part of this is, people don't understand dyslexia because they still think it's a visual processing problem. So it's an auditory processing problem where the brain can't properly hear the sounds. So when they go to map it to the letter, like our boys, their brain was like, I don't know what that letter is because I can't hear it. And so it's the grapheme phoneme mapping. And it is very easy to diagnose. It really is because, it's just there aren't a lot of people trained in what it is and how to diagnose it. And on top of that, we think kids will outgrow things, right? So that's another problem. So if we put good phonics intensive intervention and a child still isn't reading, we got ourselves a problem. If you've got a kid that got flagged in kindergarten, you got yourself a dyslexic. I'm just telling you right now. And it's one of the most inherited disabilities. So
Exactly.
uncle,
Well,
right?
the other thing that I would just point out to parents, because I think this was one of those things too. And you know me, I'm a dog with a bone. If I think something's not right, I'm not letting go. And there was such an unexpected difficulty with letters and things like that, because he learned other things so much more easily. So that discrepancy,
And no attention problems.
none,
I mean,
no.
such a pleasant kid. And you know what? It's so funny. Like, he reminds me of your brother in a lot of ways, Brian. And like has that chill, like, you know, he has this likability, you know, like he's just a very likable kid. So all the things were going right, and yet he couldn't read. And in theory, he did have regular ed instruction from a caring teacher who was doing a good job. It was a mix of phonics and whole language, and he should have read. Right.
And I was doing all the things that they tell parents to do. I was reading with him every night. I was reading with him when I was pregnant with him. I was reading with him every night. I have a daughter who's a little bit older, so I would read with her. We would read to the baby, So, we were doing all the things, and lots of books in my home, lots of reading going on. And so all of that was in place. So the fact that he was having such a struggle, it was clear something was was
going on. So at what point, so that beautiful teacher, whoever you are, power to you, first grade, validated your mama bear instinct.
That's right.
And from there, he wind up getting a diagnosis of dyslexia.
Well, it's interesting. They didn't exactly give him dyslexia, again, because there's this weird, I think they're afraid of overdiagnosis, but unfortunately that's resulting in underdiagnosis. And so what they did give him was an auditory processing disorder, along with non-contextual information disorder or language disorder or something along the lines that where, if there's no context for it, if it's a B because I say it is, or it makes the buzz sound because I say it does, he can't.
What kind of bogus diagnosis was that, Nancy?
I know. But whatever. It got the job done.
It got the job done.
Yeah, it worked, because then we were pointed in the direction of a wonderful organization in New York that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, the Soifer Center, which
amazing
Orton Gillingham program, which was great, helped tremendously.
Yeah, she was a specialist in dyslexia, and she probably was like, "Girl, Mr. and Mrs. Gambuza, this is dyslexia."
Right. My name is McDermott, but my married name is
right. But they and then from there, you did actually get him Orton-based support.
Correct. And that was Amy, and she was amazing, and he loved going to her because he loved that he was getting help to finally be able to kill these accelerated reader tests. So he was all in. Yeah.
In case anybody's listening or watching and you don't know what is Orton Gillingham. So Orton Gillingham came around in 1917, and it's a style of reading instruction that was designed for dyslexics, still used today. It is the mother of all dyslexia reading programs that are evidence-based and proven, and it's structured intensive phonics, and it is designed in a way to remediate dyslexia without getting into all the particulars, but it requires a lot of intensity, and you can't move on the steps. You can't just skip ahead. You have to master in order to move to the next level. And it has a 95 to 97% efficacy when done with intensity and how it's supposed to be done, like correctly by an experienced person. Let me say that again, 95 to 97% efficacy. There are very few interventions in the world that have that kind of efficacy. So, if you have a history of dyslexia in your family, we're going to talk about some of the gifts of dyslexia, but you need proper instruction, and there is no workaround, and don't let any school system tell you anything different. Right, Nancy?
Yeah, 100% correct. And I think one of the things that worked really great with that for us and for Anthony was that it is multisensory. And so there is a kinesthetic piece to it. There's an audiological piece to it. There is a visual piece to it. And so, with all of that together, I think, first of all, he enjoyed it very much, but also I think that he needed a multi-sensory approach, and that was what was great about Orton. Love
multi-sensory, like you said, visual, textural, like all of it. That's what is the key that unlocks it in the dyslexic brain, because that is their language. To just talk about it doesn't happen. It doesn't stick. That's what actually sticks. And yet, so he progressed and he got some of the basics, and his teacher made a suggestion to you, Nancy, that you said, no, thank you. Talk about that.
Yeah. So just to fill in what ended up happening with us was that he did that Orton Gillingham for, I'm going to say, probably a little bit less than a year, just a little bit less than a year. We were going 3 times a week. We were on it. And the school year ended. And at that point, we actually ended up moving to Connecticut. So we were in New York. We ended up moving to Connecticut, right? And he was doing great. He had caught up and was beyond grade level. He got to go to the ice cream social for the accelerated reader. It all went great. So we moved, and then there wasn't anyone convenient around the area in Norton Gillingham, and he seemed to be doing fine. So we kind of let it go. So he went through 2nd grade and 3rd grade, fine. He hit 4th grade, and then all of a sudden, we started to see things kind of go a little south again. His reading slowed down a lot. Like, he was having a hard time getting through those more, complex and longer books. His handwriting was horrendous again. Like, there seemed to be a little dip. And he was struggling, and he was tired. Like, his brain, I think, was working so hard. He was exhausted all day, but then he was too wired to get to sleep because his brain was still like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So
totally. That's exactly what happens in a dyslexic brain. It's like you have to kick it so hard because as I, we'll, talk about it we get to the point of neurofeedback and QEG, his highway system isn't working. So he's always got to go off on ways to get information when it should just get off one exit. He's got to go 10,
That's exactly
in order
right.
to get there.
When I would see how he would try to solve word problems in math, I was like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, the amount of calculations, and I was like, but just this. Yeah, it was crazy. So another amazing angel in our world, Adele Josovitz, she was his 4th grade teacher. Amazing, super supportive, creative, wonderful woman. And she said to me, you got to do something here. She said to me, this is a smart, creative kid, and it's not coming out in his work. I said, okay. So I talked to the school counselor. I won't name her because she actually started talking to me about going to a psychiatrist for medication, which I was like, that's fascinating. What medication are you recommending or even thinking about for learning disabilities? What medication is that?
Because I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? And that's such a good therapist trick. Help me to understand, like, there is no medication for dyslexia. Sorry.
Yeah. So I just threw that one out the window.
I think that's so important because I have had so many conversations in the last week. Plus, we just filmed this. I'm in this docu-film about natural solutions for ADHD. And I feel like so many people come to us because the teacher puts the pressure and the parents are like, I don't know what else to do. That's what my pediatrician, that's what my neurologist. And then they say like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, they're telling me to do it. And it's like, no, there is another way. So that's what this is all about, our work and what we do. And also to just bring solutions and hope to parents, because there really is. But you were like, no, silly. And it's so clear cut for you.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, because I think a lot of parents are like, well, they're recommending Medicus and he's got a focus problem. You just understood his brain better. And you knew that it wasn't just a focus problem. It was really, truly dyslexia.
Well, I could see that it really wasn't a focus problem at all. His focus was great on other things. You know what I mean?
It really is.
Although I know that can happen in AD as well. But like, I could see it wasn't that he wasn't sitting there reading his book. It was that it was just going very, very slowly.
Yeah. The executive functioning centers, the working memory component in particular, starts to break down. And many kids that are dyslexic are first called ADHD, especially if they're not caught in the beginning when we're getting reading instruction. And it's so clear because, in 3rd grade, it switches, right? So we learn to read. And then in 3rd grade, we read to learn. So that is part of why there is this misnomer that that's the time to do it, because it's so clear there's a problem. And dyslexics typically have a higher IQ than average, and they can compensate with instruction, even if it's not appropriate instruction, they can compensate into that point. So that's another part of this puzzle of why kids don't get identified. And you want to get your kid identified as early as you possibly can. And we did.
Yeah,
transformative.
you'll get a laugh out of that, because Anthony was the king of figuring out ways around things. Like his teacher was telling me that he would do things like in the morning he'd come in and he'd talk to a group of kids and he'd be like, "So what was your favorite part of the reading last night?" So he had some answers stuck under his sleeve, stuck up his sleeve. He would do little things like that. He's on pictures. If there were pictures, he was all over them, studying those hard so he could figure out. And so he was clever that way. But, obviously it feels terrible when you think, okay, everybody else seems to be getting this and I'm not. And so I knew I had to do something again. And very fortunately, I was doing a lot of digging, and you happened to be doing a presentation at a school in Easton, which was very close to me. And I was like, I'm going to go check out neurofeedback. Let me just see what that even is. Let me go find out. And of course, the presentation was amazing. And I think when you asked all the parents who were there any questions, my first hand was like, how long is the waiting list to get started with you? I'm ready to go.
You left a message. Like by the time we get back, you already were like, I want the first appointment. It was pretty amazing. And I think what it resonated, I mean, you're just a person, right? There were a lot of just parents, obviously, at this meeting. Yeah. And when I talk about it, right, I always do a presentation called Rewiring the Brain. And I talk about the brain and I talk about ways we can actually rewire the brain. And there are many ways, and we're going to talk about some of those, but you then came and did some neurofeedback, right? We're going to talk about like exactly how do you treat dyslexia. We talked about Orton Gillingham. Yeah. It is the unlocker. It is the jam. And I don't want to pretend that it's not, but here's what we do believe. I believe neurofeedback and OG is the brain winning combination.
I agree completely. And had I so this would be my little bit of wisdom to share with other people. Had I been able to start over again from the beginning, I would have combined the two. So I would have put him, in a neurofeedback program, obviously yours if I was living in Connecticut at that time, and then I would have combined it with the Orton Gillingham. And I think that's, what we find to be the winning combination across diagnoses here, where you can, kind of get the brain functioning right and then work on that behavior. His was reading behavior. Yeah. If you could combine those two, you're gonna
well, and let's unpack that for a moment, just for everybody to understand. And we use neurofeedback, we use PEMF, which was on my desk, but I don't know where it is. But here's why it's magical. So after you do neurofeedback, your brain's still gonna be online and it's gonna work better. But when you are learning something, there is an uncomfortableness that happens in the brain and the body. It is a stressor. It doesn't matter how positive that experience. And really, honestly, OG, Wilson, Lindemood Bell, these are beautiful treatments. They're all based in Orton Gillingham, but those are my favorites for a lot of different reasons. There are some other programs. Those are research and evidence-based. But when you're in that sweet spot and the neurofeedback is there calming, it's training, but it's calming. It allows for increased learning. Like the amplification is off the charts. And we see this all the time because, we work remotely and in person with people all over. And it's that you get to see this unbelievable rise in learning at the same time. But you came, you brought Anthony.
I did.
You did your own training, and I wound up stealing you to work here.
100%.
I know. But talk about what happened when you did neurofeedback for dyslexia for Anthony. What happened? Because it was pretty.
Well, we have some pretty fun stories in this regard. So first of all, I do also want to stress that we were neurofeedback warriors. We were so consistent. We were here at least twice a week, every week for I don't even remember the number of weeks, but it was over 50 sessions that we ended up doing all together for him for this, and so consistently. I think maybe he missed one time in a week or something. Like, we were on this, and fortunately he was super cooperative and compliant with that, because he wanted to do better. He is a very motivated, driven kid, and he wants to do well and feel like he's as smart as everybody else and able to do the tasks just like everybody else. So we were on it. And so he had done a reading test, one of the STAR reading exams in the very beginning No, actually, it was probably the end of fourth grade because he was in between fourth grade and fifth grade when he did the neuro. So, so at the end of fourth grade, I think he scored somewhere in the 75th percentile, something along those lines, which isn't bad. Like we were like, okay, so he's not doing terribly or anything like that. That Orton Gillingham was carrying him along, but it certainly didn't rise to the level that we expected of him because he really was. Or is a really smart and creative kid. So we did the neurofeedback, and then the next STAR exam comes along in fifth grade, and he scored in the 98th percentile, and we were like, there you go.
There you go. And you know what? And the thing is, let's talk about the brain needing consistency. So particularly with neurofeedback, there has to be a commitment, right? Like you said, you're a warrior, and it wasn't forever, right? And sometimes people say, oh, it's a lot. There's a lot involved. Well, being on meds is a lot for the rest of your life. And there's a lot of negative things about it for that. And a lot of my kids with ADHD, with dyslexia are diagnosed with ADHD, whether that's accurate or not. I only know when I do a QEEG brain map. But the brain needs consistency. And that's why the OG based, Wilson, Lindemood Bell, the consistency trains, but so does this. And for Anthony, you talked about like, I can say now I have one kid who refused to do neurofeedback. I literally up until a few weeks ago could never say that. And that was like a parent conflict. So I'm not even going to go there, but he saw the benefit. He was one of those kids that had like a light switch, and obviously you have it standardized testing that was like 75 to 98. Isn't that lovely? And you can get that with neurofeedback. But I think what you got to see in the day-to-day is things just weren't so hard for him. Like homework was faster. Everything was faster.
Number one thing that we saw out the gate is he started sleeping better. It's like his brain was able to finally relax. So I think that was probably 12 sessions in. It wasn't even that long in. About 12 sessions in, his brain just relaxed to the point where he actually could sleep calmly, peacefully 8 hours through the night again, which that was, wonderful.
We're not going to say who the teacher was, but some of the teachers were so impressed that the teachers brought their kids.
I was going to just say that the next amazing thing was that, towards the end of his sessions, his teacher came to me and said to me, what the heck are you doing with him? Because I've got to do that with my son too. It was really great.
Yeah.
So, it was all very affirming, and it was wonderful to see the changes and to also know that his teachers in the classroom, it was actually showing up. So that was great.
And he was like, he's got a great group of friends. He's so well liked. And let's talk about, so he's been our intern. He's got one of our he's like a graphics genius, and he's got one of my most popular trending posts on Instagram on magnesium.
I love that.
So number one repost, by the way. Like, I don't know how much it's always reposted.
I love that. That's great.
But like at that point, between the instruction, the combination of the OG neurofeedback combination, talk about like his path, because here we are, we're going to college, we've been accepted to the school we want, doing what he's passionate about. And talk about how he's thriving, because that literally stopped all of the issues after that.
100%. And so that was really what I was so impressed with neurofeedback by, because once he did the neurofeedback and we finished and he kept on going, he has just kept on going. Like we didn't need to do another thing. He's just been, excelling. And what I think was also really helpful with the neuro that I think we didn't even realize was as much of an issue was there definitely was an undercurrent of anxiety running there, because he was nervous of getting called on or nervous of, making a mistake in front of people. And so, we saw all of that just relax, and all of his confidence come out. And I would start hearing in middle school that he participated so often in class. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. It's so wonderful to hear. And then, in high school, his real interest started to blossom, and, this all media design type stuff, which he really, really loves, which doesn't surprise me. He's always had that kind of, building, designing thing going on, even, since he was little. So now he is really thriving. And he's
had some really kind of fun wins, like to talk about the design that he won at his high school. His design was selected.
Yeah,
he goes to a large high school.
Yeah, yeah. And so he has been the winner of the senior yard the yard sign design for a couple years in a row now, where he makes the yard sign for seniors, congratulating them upon graduation. And then the big one this year is he won the contest to design the cover of their yearbook. And since he's a senior, that's his yearbook cover that he will have on his yearbook, which is pretty fun and pretty awesome. So he's been having a good time. And he's, what we love to see, of course, is one, he is aware of and in his passions. He is confident. He is independent, and he feels really hopeful and optimistic about his future. And that, what more could you want?
And he's like not embarrassed. He's like my Giancarlo. Like, Giancarlo started 6th grade, and the teacher said, what's your superpower? And he goes, do you want to tell her, Mom, or do you want me? And I was like, I want you. And he's like, yeah, my dyslexia is my superpower. Like, that's the same thing with Anthony. Like, he's like, yeah, do whatever. It is what it is. It is part of who he is, his neurodivergent brain, but he loves and accepts himself, which I think is a hard journey for any teenager today. But I think the hardships in this process and the conversations that you and his dad and as a family have had really helped him to just really get who he is without feeling belabored by this dyslexia.
Right. 100%. We, like, from the outset, we accepted it as almost like not a no big deal, because it was hard work really hard work to work on it. But almost no big deal in terms of, this is just a little hiccup, and we're going to find a way to help you rise to that challenge. And we're going to find a way to make sure that you can do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so we instilled that in him, and that kind of growth mindset type of thing, where he's not as focused necessarily on outcomes as he is on, am I doing my best? Do I have what I need to do? Do I need another skill to learn in order to be able to do this better? That's the way he kind of focuses now on things, and it's been suiting him very well. And I think that one of the things that I love about kids with dyslexia, because I feel like I see this across the board, is because of that slight difference in how they process things, they're so creative.
So creative.
Oh my God, they see things in ways that you're like, wow, I never would have thought to do that in that way. And it's just,
honestly, I'm always like, one of my favorite dyslexics of all time, hopefully she'll do a podcast with us, is coming to be our intern this summer.
Oh, awesome.
She's just so creative. Like, and obviously I live with, a dyslexic, and then it turned out all the Hodges are dyslexic, and they're all engineers, no surprise. And their ability to see things that I even sometimes miss is just the coolest thing ever. And I think, when you get your brain online, you get the proper instruction, right? And then you work on that emotional core too. It is the winning combination of just exactly how you treat dyslexia. And it's not always easy for people to get help. And
not at all. And I do want to actually emphasize that in my story, in that I had so many moments of incredible luck. It was, it's almost ridiculous. I had teachers who actually understood and supported that. That's not common. No. I had access to wonderful supports in terms of, the program could get. I was able to find you, and it was close enough that I could go regularly. You know what I mean? So my story is one of incredible, great luck. But
it's also incredible because you and Tony really were like, wait a second, like determined. And just because somebody says no, I think, as we support people in our brain behavior reset program every day, we always get so many people are coulda, woulda, shoulda, which we never say, like, wait a second, you're here. But every single person in their story ignored their gut. And that's when you get into trouble, right?
That's right. So, I did not ignore my gut.
No, you kept pushing, and you were like, okay, it's kindergarten. But, I think that we don't recognize how inheritable dyslexia is, right? Like, strong chance one of those grandkids are going to have it. That's okay. That's right. Now you know.
Our family knows how to handle it. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think what's upsetting about, kind of that, the mentality that is in school, well, let's wait and see what happens, is it's almost like a wait to fail mentality.
It is a wait to fail model.
Who wants wants to do that?
No,
You know,
no.
I feel like the right way to go is when you see something that's not going right, get the supports in as fast as possible.
Well, and what does the research say? The research says, hello, you need an OG based instruction that's delivered with fidelity in the way that it's supposed to. It's got to be multi-sensory, it's got to be structured, it's got to be sequential, and it really needs to be, the research says, 4 to 5 times a week. So now you grab kids early and you give him that proper instruction. I always tell everybody that I used to do a lot of consulting for private schools, right? Which I still do presentations all the time for private schools, but I used to actually go in and be regular consultant. And I learned quickly that dyslexia was a #1 common characteristic of all millionaires. And if they wanted, how cool is that? 40% of all businesses are owned by dyslexic. Hey,
I'm going to pass it on to Anthony.
And what I learned was that I used to go in and say, I'm going to tell you right now, I will not be your consultant unless you bring in, Wilson has a regular ed program called Foundations. And unless you bring it in, I won't be your consultant. And, so I had these schools and they would bring it in and it was just incredible because after year 1, they would all say the same thing to me. First year we ever had every kid learn to read. And then we knew exactly who the dyslexics were. So, and there would just be a lot of dyslexics in these very wealthy schools because again, millionaires are paying for these schools. So we need to give the brain what it needs. And, the instruction cannot be missed, but you also talk about other natural solutions because, you made changes like, I got to optimize his brain. And you went in that direction. What else did you do to support his dyslexia?
Yeah, so we did do a bunch of things. So we absolutely, whole family cleaned up our diet. We were all gluten-free and dairy-free for a good chunk of time. Anthony now no longer has to be 100% gluten and dairy free. He can have, amounts of it. He can't load up on it, but he can definitely introduce.
But he's a healthy eater. He's like a consistently healthy eater.
Super healthy eater, right? Exactly. But we did for quite a bit of time. We removed both.
He does regular exercise.
He is an athlete, so he regularly exercises and works out. He has a wonderful friend group, as you were saying, so he has really good social connections. And then we also played around, as you know, because I'm a science nerd like you. I loved playing around with different stuff. So at a period of time, we worked with audiovisual entrainment. We played with that with him for a little bit. He has definitely done PMF, which has been great for him. I'm trying to think. We've done some heart math with him for breathing.
Supplements. You've done some different things, and you feel like now
meditation. He enjoys meditation. He does it before he runs, actually, even sometimes to make sure that he's calm and ready to go for his races. So we've done a lot, and it's all
meditation really is the jam. Everybody, you got to power down before you power up.
He does that. Those polar ice bath things. Oh, that's a newer thing that he's added.
Better him than me. Not happening.
I see him do it, and I'm like, no,
forget about it. I'm not doing it.
He does it. Because he there's good stress to the body and there's bad stress to the body, right? So those kinds of changes in temperature, things like that, when they're done.
Well, it also improves the cellular functioning, so it gets your cells in the mitochondrial. And I think for him, he's learned that he needs to take care of himself and evolve, which is one of my favorite things about our kids. When we give them these things, like people like, are my kids going to be resistant? Yeah, some of them may, but you only have them until they're 18. Like, don't get freaking Lucky Charms, people. It's not give anything to the brain. Like, do what you can. No shaming anybody. Nancy's brother had ARFID. Like, no shaming of ARFID. Do what you can and try to be mindful, but you also have to power down. So,
right. And I will also 100% comp to, there have been nights in my life where our dinner was Lucky Charms and chocolate milk. So I'm just going to say there's no perfection.
You got me into the salted cashew ice cream. I didn't even know I liked ice cream. I told her my kids showed up with 4 things of it.
Yeah. So, there's no perfection in this. You just try to do your best. And that's how we've always done it also. Yeah. And that's what we've instilled in him too. You just try to do the best you can. You don't have to knock yourself out, trying to get
You do have to try cashew ice cream if you haven't tried it. Okay. Don't get it at my Whole Foods. It's always out.
That oat-based food is really good too. Both of those are really
good. And and that has the right combination where you don't feel so terrible. Life is about, if you are going to have something, right? We get gluten-free cupcakes here for everybody's birthdays. They are the best cupcakes, and from Cake Box in Ridgefield, Connecticut. And unbelievable. I've converted everybody just based on this cupcake, but we celebrate. Right. And that's okay, you know, so just try to have better food quality whenever you can. So, you know, we talked about so many things, and I want people to not be overwhelmed. I want them to be excited. And certainly my top takeaways are: get that brain regulated and optimized. There are multiple ways to do it. We talked about neurofeedback. We mentioned PEMF. We actually have a specific device for attention and memory and learning. So if somebody wants to know more about that, you can certainly go to our website, www.drroseann.com, and look at that. We talked about diet. We talked about exercise. We talked about stress management, socialization, all kinds of things. When you think back of your own personal journey, because I want everybody to feel like, okay, this is something I can do. What one thing do you wish every parent knew about this process of getting support for any child, but particularly a child for dyslexia, using natural solutions? You know, where do you think, what do you wish somebody had told you?
Oh, I think just out the gate, even just that it can be done is, you know, that is number one. But number two, I think that piece that we were talking about, where really trusting that you know your child, right? You know whether something is not really working right, or something just seems that it is off with your child. So if you are feeling that and you're feeling pretty strong about it, do not give up. You know, absolutely fight for your child, fight for their, you know, their chance to thrive in their classroom or thrive in whatever setting that they're in. And don't let people deter you. Even experts, quote unquote, experts, don't let them deter you. Find other people, find groups who are talking about these kinds of issues, find other moms who are dealing with similar things, because you know your kid. You are the expert in your kid. You're the one who's there 24/7, and you see what's going on. So trust yourself, and don't let anyone deter you from doing what's right.
Amen, sister. And I'm going to add to this, because, you know, once a week somebody travels a long distance or flies to us just about once a week. And I think one of the things, the conversations I've been having so much with other mothers is, like, this mom came in like a week or two ago and she said, is it possible that I know more and I'm smarter than the professionals? And I was like, girl, yes.
Yeah.
And own it that you are the CEO. So is it true that she's smarter than everybody? No. But her journey, she couldn't get what she wanted. And I think that is the journey, just that you said, that we are not trusting our gut, right? And that's when we get into trouble. So trust it, but then also say, damn it, I'm a CEO and I'm going to be the best CEO ever, right? And we're saying that as two warrior moms right here, like, sorry, it's the way it is. This is how it's going down, right? And I think people can feel good about that instead of, like, you know, being worried. Now, what's different in the families that we work with is they're able to get guidance from us, right? And I think you need expert guidance. Like, your journey had expert guidance, and it's okay. You just have to have guidance. One, where's the research? Like, what are these treatments that are there? And two, is that expert in alignment with you and your family values?
That's right. That's right.
And I love that you said, like, just to learn. You wish you even learned about these things. This is why we're having this conversation. And anybody that wants to work with us or needs help, we have a solution matcher, and you can go to www.drroseann.com/help to find the right solution exactly where you're at. Some people want to work one-on-one with us, and we do that. And we're able to support you wherever you are in the world. We're actually doing more outside the United States, and we have different kinds of support. Some of it's just EMF, some of it's neurofeedback, but we have a brain behavior reset program, and we offer wraparound care because, it's a multi-pronged approach. You know,
it truly is. It's both calming that brain and learning new things. That's the key.
So key. I'm always, like, excited to see what happens in the journey of the kids that we work with, but obviously this is deeply personal. And I just can't say enough to say thank you to share this, because I know this was an inspirational conversation, and we've both been there when we're crying.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been hard.
Mhm.
And our kids have been crying, like, because of how hard the struggle is. But just know, with the right interventions at the right time, everything can change. And you can get off the worry train as a parent. I'm not saying you're always going to have a level of worry, but you don't have to be driving it once your kid's doing okay.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to get off once in a while. Have a breath.
I know. And now you're going to be an empty nester, Nancy. Holy moly.
No, I can't even.
I got a few more years before
Yeah.
I start bawling my eyes out on that one. I told John Carlo he's got to live next door to me, because that's what we do in the real Italians. He said, I don't think so. I said, all right.
Oh,
As long
no.
as you're marrying a nice gluten-free girl, we're okay.
There you go. There you go.
Anyway, but thank you for sharing your very personal journey. And obviously, thank you for, Nancy is our clinical director, and she is behind the scenes making sure that everybody in our brain behavior reset program is getting exactly where they need and the right kind of guidance. So thank you for all your work.
Oh, well, thank you. And again, like I said, we are forever grateful to Roseann and our family. And, we could never thank you enough. Yeah.
Well, wherever you are, people, is exactly where you need to do, but you definitely need to take action. And, if you're looking for solutions, you know where to find us.